Fellow tennis nerds, this video will deal about my favorite rackets at the moment, but also looking at some classics from the past, comparing them a bit, talking about why modern rackets are better, in my opinion. Might be a controversial opinion. I've talked about this before, but this is a little bit of a different take. So let me know in the comments what your favorite classic rackets are and what your favorite current racket is if you're playing with one. So if we start, I have two piles next to me. You don't see them, but we're gonna start with a classic favorite of mine. It's not that old, so I'm calling it a classic because it's a racket I keep coming back to. That's the Head Prestige. MP 2019 before they started calling it Pro, 1820 pattern, and some pros use this on the tour, and it's a beautiful racket in terms of pocketing, so you really feel the ball cup in the string bed, stay a long time here. A lot of flex in this racket. Goes around 61 RA strung, 64 unstrung. Not so forgiving off center, but compared to older Prestiges, which we will get into, this is an actual 98 square inch head size, while many older Prestiges are 95. So you do get a bit more forgiveness, and they do have a 1619 version in the later Oxetic editions. But I thought this one was the best, felt the best when you hit the ball, and that's what a Prestige is all about after all, right? So it's one of my favorite rackets of all time. I don't get a lot of help from it, and when I play better players, my shots tend to land a bit short, but I can't stop playing with this one overall because I really like it. So I still have 3 of those, and they come out from time to time. That's what I find interesting and exciting about tennis, is that you can get a different sensation. It's also part of the work I do as a tester and content creator in this space, so recommended if you want to have old school feel but a bit more forgiveness. Very demanding racket, quite heavy, 320 grams unstrung, and you do need a little bit of weight for stability in my opinion, but then it plays brilliantly. So this one is not so old, but to me it's a classic, and it kind of sends you back to the good old days of Head Prestiges. There is a risk that they will remove the Prestige at some point. I think it's their least selling line, so it's tough for players to use it. It's dwindling a bit. There are some pros still using the 95s, the PT57A. You have Cerundolo and a few other guys still persisting with the PT57A that Andy Murray used, and Gilles Simon and Tommy Haas and so many others. But overall it's diminishing a little bit on the tour. But this one brings back the Prestige to life, and it's such a beautiful frame to play with. So that's a classic. If we can bring out a more modern racket to compare it to, this is probably the one I play the most. It's the Pure Aero 98. It's an addictive racket in terms of explosivity, power for a 98, 1620 pattern gives you some control, but you need to commit to your shots with this one because the ball will kind of explode off the string bed, a lot of movement in the strings, and it does eat strings pretty quickly, but the sensation and result of the shots you hit is kind of unique in a way on the market. And you do feel that when you're playing better players, that when you use the Aero, you're giving yourself a little bit better chance. However, against weaker players, in many cases, you will have a bit of a spray ability, like the ball might sail a bit longer than you intended if you don't fully commit, if you don't have the best day, if your footwork is lagging. So it's a racket that requires full commitment. Just look at the players using it. Carlitos, Rune, Fields, they're big hitters, so you can't really play like pushy tennis with this one. But overall, maybe the best modern racket out there on the market. Spin and power in a 98 square inch, and I keep coming back to this one. The VS is also good, the previous generation, but I felt like this has a bit better comfort. It is still not super arm friendly. I've talked a lot about this racket, so I don't want to dwell on this, but when I deal with pros, this is like one of the most requested rackets to test and to tweak, so keeps coming back for a reason. Modern classic, legend in the game already. Will it be better in the new generation coming next year? I don't know. We go back to the classic rackets on the topic of Babolat. The soft drive, the racket that Rafa Nadal started his career with, that Carlos Moya finished his career with, played his whole career. If you read the latest Babolat book, they talk about Moya using the pure drive, but he actually used the soft drive for his whole career. It's apples and oranges. And this racket, fiberglass, graphite, I think 20% fiberglass. What fiberglass does, they don't use it anymore really. I think it's quite expensive for the manufacturers, and also there is a little bit more risk of breakage, like durability issues with fiberglass in rackets, as far as I understand. But this racket comes in at 270 grams unstrung, so it does need customization. Back in the day, this was released I think 94, someone can correct me, the rackets were all over the place and in the quality control department, so don't think that the quality control has gotten worse, because it hasn't. They used to be so bad. I have measured so many rackets from the good old days, if you want to call it that, and they are all over the place. Like there's some super high swing weights, some low swing weights. There was not much quality control. Fischer, the old Austrian brand, they used to have the zero tolerance if we go back maybe 10, 20 years, and that was pretty good. But overall, the quality control was pretty horrendous from all brands. This was no different because I have had maybe 10 of these, and they are all quite different in specs. Even grip sizes feel different. So this was like the first gen of Babolat rackets, and they were new on the market. They bought the molds from Prokenix, and they decided to get into it. Now they are one of the most successful brands in the world, but that was the start of everything. But this racket gives you lots of spin, very open pattern. Can almost not play with it today. I did use it for a while, and I love playing with it, but it's just the ball is sailing out for me a lot of times because I'm playing flatter. So while I can use the Aero for the 1620 pattern, this one is a little bit too open, similar to the first generation Pure Drive, but the fiberglass feel. But it's a comfortable frame for like a Pure Drive family racket, and the first generation Soft Drive is one of my favorite rackets of all time. That was a classic. Let's go to a modern classic. The Wilson Blade 98 V9. Can this be called a classic, the V9? Well, you can argue that the V8 was better, or V7 was even better because it had a softer feel. Depends completely what you like. But overall, the Blade as a line, in its 9th generation now, the Blade is just one of the best selling rackets of all time for a good reason. It's used by so many players on tour. It's a versatile frame. It gives you control, but with a bit more pop than what you'd probably get from a Pro Staff Prestige like racket usually. Depending on the weight, of course, it is a control racket, and it's starting to become a bit more demanding to play with. I notice when I play sometimes stronger players that this is not really enough for my game. I then play much better with Aero, but this will give you pinpoint precision, stability, and you will feel in control. So this is the gem of the family. Talking about quality control from the last racket, this I think was the best quality control I have seen among modern rackets. I'm probably including Yonex in this. They're pretty famous for this, but I think it's with swing weights not always super exact. This one has been, I've had like maybe 6 of these. Swing weights been pretty spot on, weight and balance really good. So Wilson really took a step in the right direction with the QC for the Blade. I'm not sure if it's the same for the Ultra really, but the QC for this one is good. It's a great frame if you want control. So if you're looking for control, you should try a Blade. They have 1820 and they have 1619. This is a 1619. A little bit easier to use, a little bit lower swing weight. So this one is a bestseller for a reason, alongside the Pure Aero. If we stay with Wilson, I've made videos about this before, but so many pros I talk to and I know of, they actually use some version of the Wilson Six.One 95. 1820 is the most popular. They had a 1618, which is more open, giving you a little bit higher launch angle. Obviously slightly less precision then. This is just one of the best ones, the best Six.One 95 you ask me. The feel is great, a little bit dampened but not too much. You're in full control of the ball at all times, but the slightly thicker beam than most prestigious, which are like 20 millimeters, they give you a bit less. This one can actually generate some power. You see Dan Evans, Gigi Leheshka, now he's testing some string patterns and maybe going to the Tour 95, but he's one example of a guy that uses this or used this. Medvedev used to play with this, and Shapovalov used to play with this racket. So many players use the Wilson Six.One 95 of some generation. Del Potro, Kohlschreiber, so many good players, and one of the best rackets, I think. Obviously not forgiving. I cannot really play with this anymore on the same level as I do with the Aero, for example. Not getting quite enough, but I do love taking it out and hitting sometimes to enjoy the sensation and feel of this frame. So if you see one used, I recommend you get one. It's a classic, especially in my opinion, the N-code. And there's a reason Wilson brought back the N-code design. It's just such an icon. Also in terms of like Roger using it for so long and so on. A modern frame that was my frame for a while and I really enjoy playing with is the new EZONE Blast Blue, they call this. It has a funky hybrid in here with Polytor Pro and Restring Vivo, I think. Very, very good racket. My friend Nicky switched to this from the older generations, more dampened, and my friend Leah also plays with this. It's just one of those rackets that if you have the style for it, you're hitting flatter, you're going more through the court, and you're an attacking player, this racket should suit you. It did suit me. I sometimes struggle with a little bit of artificial feel to rackets, being a complete racket nerd and having access to whatever racket I want, pretty much. This makes it a little bit tough to commit to the Yonex feel, the artificial feel. I know some other pros that test these and feel the same, but then we have examples of pros like Madison Keys switching to this, winning Grand Slam straight away. As I said in many videos before, it's not the racket, but you need to trust the racket. So when you find a racket that feels like wow from the get-go and you just love the sensation and how it feels in the hand, this could be your racket. This could be a ticket to stop thinking about rackets, because once you're overthinking rackets, it makes it very difficult to play tennis. Ask any pro, ask any amateur. So great frame, good update, the Blast Blue 98, one of the best modern rackets on the market. The head PT57A, this is just a cosmetic. It's the old Prestige UTech MP, but it's actually the PT57A. Beautiful frame, 1820, also comes in 1619. One of the best sensations when you hit the sweet spot. But obviously these days when tennis is faster, and you know, if you're not the player, in my case obviously, like if I'm playing someone I should beat, then this works fantastically. If I'm playing up a level or half a level, then this one gets a little bit more demanding, and any shots outside here gives the opponent a very easy shot, and I need to really put my foot on the gas all the time to make sure I get like a difficult shot with this one, or be really on with my placement. So you cannot be lazy with these kind of control frames. You need to commit, and you need to have a pretty strong game plan, because if you get like a too easy ball to your opponent, risk is you will be losing the point. But just for a hit and just enjoying the beauty of our sport and feeling the ball, nothing really beats the PT57A. I would say this and the Prestige MP I showed before are those rackets that will never leave kind of my house or one of my tennis bags, because I feel like those rackets are just so much fun to play with, even though they don't bring me always the results I would like to have on my shots. But yeah, this is a legend. Used to be called Head Pro Tour 630 or 280 in the States. If we're staying with Head, this has been, I think, one of my most successful consultation rackets. I do many consultations every year with rec players and with professional tennis players, sometimes as high as top 50 in the world. But this one has been one of those rackets that if they try it, they really, really love it. It's the new Head Radical 2025 MP edition. The Pro has a thinner beam, a little bit more demanding, a little bit less power. This one does give you some spin and power, but in a controlled frame. A little bit more explosive than the Wilson Blade 98. So very, very good frame. I would say this is a little bit nicer feeling than the previous one, which was my racket of choice for quite a while. But overall, those two rackets, which generation you choose, 2023 or 2025, the Radical MP is one of those rackets that suits many players, gives you control, allows you to play the style you want. And I would say it's Head's current best racket, maybe alongside the Gravity Pro that so many pros love. And I could have mentioned, but I'm going for frames that I've used recently and been very happy with in match play and so on, and that I know have been such a success with fellow tennis nerds out there. The Gravity Pro, to mention that one, is a more demanding frame that works really well on the Pro Tour for like aggressive ball strikers, kind of take the ball early. Maybe not the most versatile frame, but for that kind of style, like Rublev, Fulin, Verev in a way, that works really well. But this one is more versatile, and you're seeing the Radical in different shapes, used by many Italian players like Cobolli, Bellucci, and Arnaldi, and so on. This is a great frame. If you don't know what to play, try the Radical. That's generally a good recommendation. Another racket I've used a lot that is not a classic, maybe not a modern frame either, but falls kind of directly in between everything. This is a control racket from Nordicdots called Model 100. Henrik uses it, and my buddy Carl Adrian, the coach of Safulin, uses it. My buddy Enzo uses it. Quite a few players have like switched to this, high-level players, also a WTA player from Sweden. So this is a very good frame. I would say it's the best current Nordicdots frame. They will be bringing out some new models, but it has versatility. So you're not getting loads of power. It's not a 100 square inch power frame. It's a in the middle frame that has some vibes from the good old days. Sweet spot, you're feeling a good sensation when you hit the ball, but it's also a little bit more forgiving in the large head size. It does take me back to a frame I need to talk about as well, which is the Prince Phantom 100X. 305 gram Prince Phantom, another very versatile frame with beautiful feel. Prince rackets, they don't get all the love that they deserve because they're not seen in the hands of pros, but that is an excellent racket and a favorite of mine. I often recommend it, like if you're looking for comfort and forgiveness. Some people might find it too flexible with these rackets that flex like below 60 strung, but for some it just gives them like full toolbox of shots and styles to play. So I needed to mention that one. Those rackets kind of play a similar game style. Just as the video was done, I thought my work was done and I could send it to my editor. I realized I had two rackets I did not mention, one classic and one modern rackets. There are so many classics, so I think I could be here for quite a while, but these are the ones that are like top of mind right now, that are staying in my bag. And one gem that I found, it's another Head 95 square inch 1820. Now you understand what kind of racket I'm coming from and how I started playing tennis. It's the IG Radical MP used by Diego Schwartzman. Now he's retired. And more famously, Taylor Fritz, with kind of minimal adjustments. He has some extra weight in the hoop, but that's pretty much it. And this is a gem. I actually played with this one today. It's the IG Radical MP. As you know, the IG series left quite an imprint on many players. The best feeling head frames in a long time. I think the reviews were pretty unison back then, and they are really nice looking as well. So this is strung with True Pro Pure Rush, an excellent poly, 20% off using Tennis Nerd. But this is truly a poly that I go back to over and over again. But this frame is brilliant. Really like this racket, and you can generate some power with it for an 18-20-95 screen racket. You can see it in the hands of Fritz. I mean, he is not like he has not customized it to the beast level of any kind like Cerundolo has with his PT-Fit 7A. This is just a pretty powerful racket, and if you have the game like Fritz, then you can play with it. Still, it's a 95 18-20. Don't expect it to be a pure drive, but for that kind of frame, it is a little bit powerful. Fans of the 6.One 95 wheels, 6.One 95 that I talked about earlier, will enjoy the same beam thickness, the 22mm. That gives you a bit more pop on the ball. IG Radical MP, definitely a classic. Play with it today and use it for the whole session, which is rare for me. That means the racket is good, at least according to me. And I should mention this one in 2 different cosmetics. Now the US Open one, the ID T-Fight 305S ID. This is the best T-Fight I think they have produced yet, if you ask me. I really like this one. For me, it was a bit better in L2 than L3. The grip shape I'm never quite adjusting to, but in smaller grip it works because you have a bit more wrist movement, but it's very rectangular. But if you like that stuff, it's a great frame, and it has some good pop to it. I actually prefer this cosmetic over this one. It is a little bit of the same in the terms of the Ultra being this color and the EZONE being also similar colorways. However, this one still looks great, and it plays great. It has a bit more power than your average control racket. Pretty versatile frame, quite similar to a head Radical, I would say, and it gives you a little bit of spin and power without sacrificing too much control. So T-Fight 305S, one of the best rackets of the year. So I picked a bunch of rackets. I feel like there is some classics that I will not stop using from time to time, but that I cannot really play a match with against an equal or stronger player these days, because the sweet spots are bigger these days. The dampening is better. I know some people might complain about artificial feel, but when it comes to ease of use, maybe strength of shot, I think most modern rackets do beat the old rackets. And Henrik and I, we discuss rackets all the time, and we try older versions all the time, going back 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And we always agree on this, although we have different tastes and styles, that the new rackets are actually, they're getting better. And I'm not saying that to butter up the companies who are selling the rackets. If you have a racket that you like, that you play well with, stick with that. You don't need to go and buy a racket if you don't need to. But overall, I feel like every year I'm testing new rackets, I see small improvements. Sometimes nothing you write about like wow, but there are small improvements. The companies do work hard on getting something really playable, user-friendly, as tennis keeps evolving. So I do think that the rackets are overall better, and the quality control is also better. You have to think that when they made rackets going back 20 years, they were thinking maybe more of multi-filament strings and a more a flat game style, the way they hit the ball then. So it was a little bit of a different game then, and also the courts overall were faster, so you needed more focus on control. Today the courts are slower, you need to hit through, and it's a little bit different, especially when talking pro tour. So balls, they say, are slower, and I think that is the case. That's been my experience. And courts are also slower, so you need more help. It's just natural that the game evolves, a sport evolves, and then you need to upgrade equipment. They do it in golf, they do it in other sports, so why not in tennis? I know it's easy to be like an old nostalgic, which I am a big time, but overall I noticed that rackets are actually getting better. Generation by generations, there are small upgrades and tweaks to the frames, and that's a little bit what I wanted to talk about in this video. I hold on to the good old rackets from the past, but when it comes to playing a match or actually playing on like some level, I feel like a modern frame, like the Aero 98, even the Blade or something like that, will do a better job for me, and I will play better. That's the message of the video. But do enjoy the rackets from the past. They do provide great sensations and are fun to use. And for some, it might work really well, but this is what I've noticed from club level and upwards. That's it. If you like videos like this, give me some ideas in the comments. What do you want to see next? Maybe something strings, maybe something shoes, maybe something else. I will try to vary a bit more. If you want good coaching videos, I hope to shoot more with Carl Adrian, who helps me with TN2, Tennis Nerd 2, and where we have coaching videos and other videos as well, but the coaching seems to be the most liked. So we'll get to that as soon as he comes back from the US Open. Swing. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.